everyone. Today I get to do something fun. Of course, everything's fun. I'm going to teach you tactical influence method. Yep, there was a typo, but I'm not changing it, right? Or maybe there's two methods in there. But it's about read, reveal, and close in one conversation. And of course, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Will Horton, Dr. Will Horton, a psychologist. Hypnotist, master NLP trainer, been in the NLP world for 40 years. Course creator, obviously. And I was trained at the FBI Academy for hostage and crisis negotiation and got to sit through part of their profiling course a long time ago. And I started teaching this in different ways just recently. And a lot of backstory to why I do that, right? But I would start with this. Hey, questions for this session. What can you learn new today? Right? Because the worst way to shut off all learning is to say, I know. Right? Like, even if it's something you know, do you see something different? Have you ever watched a movie the second or third time and then you notice things you didn't notice, or read a book? A lot of us here are Neville Goddard fans. Every time you listen to one of his recordings, it's different. Right? What will you learn that will surprise you today? You don't know yet, but at the end you'll go, that surprised me. And how can you grow today? And as always, I always put in, how can you have fun today? Right? Because all the research says you have more retention and more cognitive abilities when you're having fun. Right? Well, you could give what's the example that one guy uses? Give a kid a video game with no instructions, and if it's a fun game, you'll come back in an hour and he'll be on like level 27, and he'll explain all this stuff, right? Because they're having fun, right? And stress is the opposite of that. So just have some fun with this. So what will you walk away with today? This is one of those kitsch webinars. I don't like that. But, I'm going to teach this. Spot the social need and the buying driver inside this in the first few minutes of a conversation. And again, I learned this decades ago at the FBI. Never really taught it to our world very much, maybe in some of my close groups. Like Bruce got a little bit of it and a few other people. I was careful. Because I'll be honest, I do not hide this, that in the world of hypnosis and NLP coaching, I've met some of the best people in the world. Caring, compassionate, dynamic people. That is great. And I've also met some of the most egotistical, manipulative, and self-centered people I've ever seen. It's just like life. I found that in this psych world and everything. So, teaching NLP, I always say when they teach basic NLP, people go, especially 30 years ago, they go, is this manipulative? Well, yes, it's manipulative. How do you, yes, right? So if that's one level, when you add what we're going to do today, and if you decide to take the class, it's a whole different level. And I didn't want to put that out there. Then a couple years ago, probably during COVID, and they pulled the troops out of Afghanistan and Iraq. A lot of guys that were in the intel world that were, trained at hostage negotiation, interrogation, and profiling started teaching classes. So since it's out there, I thought, I'm going to give something no one else can give, at least in my opinion, is that information, but with what we know in hypnosis and NLP. So that's what we're going to do today. But first, you're going to learn really quickly how to spot a social need and the buying driver inside in the first few minutes of a conversation. Because again, a lot of times, we like to think how much pressure it is when you're, you got someone on a Zoom call, you're trying to close them, or they come into your office. If you do that, you got one conversation, basically, right? Yeah, there's a little bit of pressure there. But it's not like negotiating for someone's life, in a time-limited thing. So what they do, what the FBI does better, and CIA and Department of Defense, is they really only study what works. They don't care about, theoretical models. After a while, they don't care about this stuff. It's like, what works? What can we duplicate? So we're going to read social needs and buying driver decisions in the first few minutes. And then we're going to reveal what I call tactical empathy, right? And dissonance, safe questions, because people won't say a lot of what's really going on. Match your language to the real motives so that the next steps that you're going to do if you're trying to close, they feel aligned, not pressure. And of course, this is good for, high ticket enrollments, coaching, difficult negotiations. I just used some of this stuff. I was thinking of buying a car, so I got salesman on the phone. And, there's this thing they teach. It's like, if you want to write this down, it's brilliant. I said, well, what's the outdoor price? Out the door price for this car. And they never want to tell you. No. I got an out the door price. And then I went, and he gave me his name. I'll say it's Reed, since Reed's here. Reed, how am I supposed to do that? And it's what we call, I guess, if you want the NLP background, it's a little bit of a pattern interrupt. And it interferes with, they were expecting whatever. And they said, what did you say? I said, how am I supposed to do that? They said, I'll be right back. Hold on, I was on the phone. And they come back, and they lowered the price by $1,500. Right? So I did it again, and they came back $500 less, and he goes, that's it. I can't walk back in the sales manager's office. And I'm like, okay, I'll keep it in mind. But I mean, and again, if you could picture like a negotiation for something much more thing, is if it's a bad situation, if a guy says, I need a getaway car and whatever and some money, they're trained to say, Bruce, I understand, but how am I supposed to do that? And it makes their thinking switch to your viewpoint slightly, right? And it also reveals a lot of information. If they go, that's not my problem, okay. Of course, we're not dealing in high-pressure things like that. But if that was the car salesman, he goes, that's not my problem. Would I want to buy a car from that guy or that car lot? Right? So anyway, it's kind of fun. So we're going to have some fun. So the three-part conversation. I got this kind of synthesized guy named Chase Hughes. I try to give credit where credit is due. And Chris Voss. Chris Voss was a hostage negotiator. Chase Hughes was in the, I think, Navy and was a DOD guy. And they teach a lot of this. I'm giving a different slant, but we'll call it behavioral X-ray, social needs, and rapid motive detection. And then we'll reveal tactical influence and elicit, how to do that. That thing I call tactical empathy, that a lot of people call it that comes out of that world. And hidden objection discovery. I don't need to be. Where does have him? There we go. There you go. So the sixth social need, it drives buying behavior back, all your behavior, right? This is way beyond any of that Maslow stuff, which is, I don't believe in anyway, to be honest with you. But, it's like what really drives people, especially where we are now. We're not in survival mode most of the time. So we have 6 things that drive us. Significance. People that are significant driven. It's a social psychological need. Right? And they want impact, distinction, status, recognition. Right? If you've ever gone to conferences, there are people that love to get awards. And this is very hypocritical for me to say, because I've gotten quite a few of the awards. Right? And I'm kind of significance driven, especially years ago. And it's powerful. And it doesn't matter. Just learning this doesn't stop you from doing it. Right? I remember I was at one conference, and National Guild, for a lot of you that know it, and they have an award, and it's a significance award. It's the Orman McGill Chair. Right? It's for presenter of the year. Right? I'm like, okay, I always wanted it, right? This is the way it is. It's like, I want that award, right? That's one that, at least in theory, the organization does not control. It's voted on by the people in the conference, right? So I'm like, oh, cool, never got it. Right? So one year, there was a gentleman named Elson Eldridge who since passed on. You know, I said, damn, I really thought I might get that award. And he went, well, I can tell you, you've come in second like 3 years in a row. And here was my response. God damn it. You just told me I'm the second place loser for 3 straight years. You know, it's like winning a silver medal. Yeah. So, yeah, it made me rethink some things, right? So anyway, but we have significance, right? Then we have people that are intelligence-driven. We see this a lot in our world of hypnosis and NLP, and even the coaching. They want to feel informed, sharp, ahead of the curve. They want other people to think they're smart. And again, just like significance, doesn't mean they're really that impactful or anything. They don't want to think they are. And they want you to think they are, right? Same with intelligence. Doesn't mean they're really intelligent. They want to appear intelligent. And you can pick things up very quickly, right? But there's some cues, but intelligence, easy. How do you know if someone went to Harvard, Yale, or Princeton? They tell you in the first 2 minutes of a conversation that has nothing to do with anything. You know, well, when I was at Cambridge, you know, forget them. So anyway, and then we have acceptance. People that want inclusion, being in a tribe, right? We all want some of these, by the way. Remember we first teach visual, auditory, kinesthetic. 30 years ago, people would say, I'm this. You use all of these, but one's more important to you. If you're truly an acceptance person, the idea of not being part of the group will drive you crazy. You know, and one way to see if you have it, if you get in a different group, for some reason, you're at a conference, you're at a seminar or workshop, and even though intellectually, you know, I'm not going to really talk to these people again. Do you still try to get inside the group, you know, like be part of the group? Ever was like somebody, they don't give a shit. Excuse my language, but they're like, yeah, no. That means they're not, oh, okay, I'm leaning back too much. Thanks there, Reed. So, and buy a fancy mic, it is still not. So that's acceptance stuff, right? Then we have approval people. Now, acceptance approval seems close. They're a little bit different, but they're close. They want reassurance, making the right move, the right decision. They'll ask for permission when it's almost like implied permission. I always remember when I had my office, and I'd have somebody sitting in my recliner, and I'd be sitting on the side. Well, I had a box of Kleenex on both sides of them and one by the door. I mean, because sometimes, as Karen, people went and done, Deborah, sometimes people cry. And it's, you know, it's not just that I'm mean, it's just they're doing something emotional. Well, this lady had, you know, we were rewriting some memories, and she starts crying. And she looks at me and goes, is it okay if I have a Kleenex? And to drink a stain, I went, no. Well, if you take one, you got to put it back. She just looked at me. Oh, of course you could take it. You didn't need to ask the question. But people will ask the question, right? So they want reassurance. When you're working with these people, and we've all had them as clients, if you've done it, where you're doing good. You're doing good, right? Then we have strength and power people, right? And it's kind of I think significance is strength and power kind of a line, right? They want leverage, agency, and control over the situation, and they want to appear strong, mentally strong, emotionally strong, especially physically strong. Right? It's the guy that's wearing the too small Captain America shirt that, like, you're looking at him going, you're 20 years with the beer gut away from, you don't look like Chris Evans in Captain America. I hate to break this to you, right? Or here in the States, David gets it a lot in Tennessee. Well, you get it everywhere. The person, you ever been driving and the person next to you pulls up and you could barely see their tires? They're in one of those SUVs or You see a pickup that's jacked up way high, and because it's strong. It's a man's truck. And then you look at it, you go, wait a minute, you got $10,000 rims on that thing. I don't think you're going off-road, but you want to appear strong, right? So it just happens, right? But they want leverage, agency, and control of the situation that they add a little significance. They'll have to point out how they're stronger, how they're this, right? I wish to give weird examples, but I was at a gym, health club, and a guy was working out, right? And he did a bench press, and after he racked it, and he was like, yeah, and then the guy went, good job, and somebody else said, what? And he goes, well, that was a personal record. It was like 330. It was quite a bit of weight. And the guy went, back in the day, and, it's like you have to show you that he's stronger and more powerful, right? But he's also one of the guys in the skin-tight T-shirt. They probably should quit wearing those. And the last group is pity people, right? They want their struggle to be understood and their pain acknowledged. And they may have real pain and real struggle, but people that live there, right? And I kind of separate this out for us. I'm not teaching just a business seminar. Is when you do therapy or coaching, you do get people that, because of health challenges, their illness becomes part of their personality, and that, right? So anyway, we have all these things. And once you kind of know these, and they're easy to acknowledge when you first start working with people, then you get their true motives in under 6 minutes, as Chase Hughes would say, right? A good book to read if you want more info is 6 Minute X-Ray. And what you do is you listen for repeated cues just in your conversation, right? I need to make sure this is the right move. That person's going for approval, or they know that there's a level of approval going on, You ever done what's called business-to-business sales, right? They'll say this a lot, and then you know two things. A, they're not the final decision maker, right? And they know they're going to have to get approval from someone else, right? But generally, I want to make sure this is the right. They have some fear that they're not going to get approval. No one around me gets this, right? This is people that want acceptance. Nobody understands this, right? One of my favorites, I get this a lot at conferences. I've done more research than most people. Oh, you mean you Googled it? Right? No, but it's like they want you to, know they're smart, right? Or they don't mention research. Like, well, of course, Karen, you remember whatever, name some research. Like, why the hell would you know that research? Especially the name of it. You might know the results of the research, right? And then you get people of pity and a little bit of acceptance. I'm tired of carrying this alone. And not just are you listening for repeated cues, you're watching for behavioral emphasis, Someone will get an energy spike when status or image mentioned, right? Bruce, I'd really like your Rolex, right? If you had a Rolex, well, come on, we're all adults. Does a Rolex keep better time than a Timex necessarily? Other than your set back $9,950. But it's, and again, people that want significance or to appear strong, they'll wear the Rolex, the super things like that. And again, another behavioral cue is hesitation appears about money, visibility or authority. That's people that they're going for intelligence and approval. And their voice changes where the real buying emotion locks. Reed sells. Bruce used to, I never asked, but I know he did this with diamond sales, right? It's like, why are they really buying that, right? So the bride to be, whatever, the fiancé, well, it's a slightly bigger diamond. Why? Yeah, she could say holds value, be worth. No, her friend had that size diamond. I will not. I want. I need a bigger diamond. Man. And again, you look for clusters. Right? So now let's go to tactical empathy. Right? Tactical influence, right? Which is based on calibrated questions and tactical empathy. A few people did ask me or email me, message me, what the hell is tactical empathy? Right? Well, it's a cool name. I took it from Chris Voss, but it's very simple. It's just you label the emotion before you solve the problem. Taryn, you sound like you're a little upset today. Right? Well, if you are upset, you're much more likely to say what you're upset about, right? Then you see somebody at an airport, and I just practiced this because I was going to teach it, right? Sunday, flying back from Chicago, I'm in the wonderful TSA line, everybody's favorite, right? And I get up to the thing, and I'm handing the guy putting my ID in, and he looks like a TSA guy. But I go, looks like you're having kind of a rush day. He went, oh, God, everybody thinks they're special because we're in the preaching. But then, it's like, and he goes, no, it's just really just another day. It's like this every day at wonderful O'Hare Airport, right, which Karen knows quite well. So anyway, but you label what you think the person is by, hopefully, you've taken NLP and hypnosis where you're calibrating to how they're sitting, how they're standing, things that are going. Or if you're asking a question about a close or making a decision, you say, you're labeling what you think is going on. It seems like this decision is carrying a lot of weight. And I kind of do this to me last week when I was up there. It was about a house I got in, realtor in there, and he's talking about all this, and I don't know if he's trained in this, but man, he looked at me and goes, it looks like this decision carries a lot more weight than you're willing to admit. All right? And I go, well, it's not just getting rid of the house, it's getting rid of the place I grew up, that part of my life, right? And then it changed the conversation. That makes sense to everybody. Right? And then, I don't know what I was, probably for that's, more decisions, things like that. And so then the calibrated questions, while people are doing this, is what's the real concern beneath this? And if he would have asked, seems like this decision is a lot bigger than you think it is. I mean, he goes, well, what's the real concern underneath it? It's like, I grew up here. Am I getting rid of my past? Which in one way would be a damn good thing, because my past. But, or you ask, how does this affect you personally? When I was at the gate to get on the plane, I went up to ask a question, and I did this, right? And it's like, oh, it looks like you're a little bit fried. She goes, well, it was Sunday, and Karen, who I know is in Chicago, it rained. Planes got delayed. It was terrible, right? And so she goes, oh, God, I was supposed to be out here an hour ago. Yeah. And so I said, well, how does this affect you personally? It's just another day, right? Are you off tomorrow on the holiday? She goes, yes. So it shifted. Does that make sense? It shifted her perspective. She was there. Everybody's asking questions, If the plane's not there, the plane's not there. And when you're doing a close, you begin to ask a technical influence question. What would need to happen to feel like a clear yes? And maybe next week I'll teach another little trick called why yes sets are horrible. They don't. I know every sales coach does them. No. They don't do what you think they should. Right? And who else is making the decision harder than it looks? Right? So now the four-step safe elicitation loop is you affirm to protect their identity. you know. Karen, you're you're an intelligent, articulate woman with great training in hypnosis and NLP, and you have a background very few people have. You are a major radio personality in the city of Chicago. That's protecting the identity. And then if she's thinking about making a change, you get the story and the context. So what drives you here? What gets you here on this call today? You know. Then you contrast the gently. This is the key. Compare value and behavior. You know, it's the simple. Well, is what you're doing getting you to where you want? If it is, that's great. Right? But if not, then we future pace the aligned decision. And this reduces resistance because people do not want to feel, they're not feel attacked. They don't feel attacked. Okay? Anybody here dread if you're looking to get some information, so you fill out a form online, and then they go, we need to jump on a quick discovery call. You know, and my first, I said that, a guy called me, right? And he goes, we need to schedule a discovery call. I go, you need to discover how much my credit card will hold. You know, but it's like, it's kind of interesting, right? So then you got this information. So let's say you're trying to close them on a coaching program, a class, whatever it is. Well, you know, if they're significance driven, you know, they got their Rolex on, they tell you how important they are. And you say, well, you know, taking this class, Karen, will position you as the person who handled it before it became a bigger issue. You'll know more than the people that think they know more. That was a very stupid sentence I just made, but it works, right? And then you got power close, people that are obviously significance and power together. You know what? This will give you leverage and put you back in control of every conversation that you've had. Then I get a lot of people with the intelligence close. You know, this will give you a model of something that you can trust instead of guessing in real time, that only smart people are deep enough to grasp. Right? And that's, as my friend Scott and Voss say, now you built it in. If they can't figure it out, they're going to think it's them. You know, you got your acceptance and approval. If you're going to close that way, you know, acceptance people that want to be part of the group. You won't be carrying this alone. You step into a structure that supports you. You know, it's the old every company will tell. We're like family here. Of course, I always go, you've never met my family. There's the reason I ran away and joined the Army. You know, and then, but I mean, people that want to step into that. That's why those of us that go to conferences, I don't care if it's the Guild, IACT, Hypnothoughts, Mid-America, all the conferences. It's part of, to be accepted as part of the group. And it's people that accept you pretty much as you are. And what we do is not weird to them. Right? And the approval close is, of course, you'll know exactly what to do next and why it's the right move. And I'll guide you every step of the way. Stuff like that. So it's just one conversation, 3 moves. Read, you know. You read what's going on. They say, I need to think about it. Right? It can show approval and regret. Right? So you need to reveal the underlying fear of making the wrong decision or looking foolish or whatever it is, right? And then close with reframing around certainty support, smart implementation, things like that, right? So why most people can't do this consistent, right? We got a lot of beautiful, intelligent, articulate, well-trained people here. Many who I've known for quite a while is we learn pieces, right? They might study a negotiation course at I hate body language courses, but a body language course or an NLP, but all or hypnosis or some of the coaching, all separately. but it's never like one operating system. You know, when you step into the bridge of a warship, all the systems are integrated, right? Then it's tactically feasible to do the things you need to do, right? So that's one reason people fail to do it. And then the other is they lack the reps, right? They don't get the repetitions. One of the things I did learn at the FBI Academy is how they role play, right? In fact, they built the whole city. It's still there. Like, you know, it has like a schoolhouse, couple of banks, a fast food restaurant. They're just buildings. It's not really there, right? And there's all these things, an airplane, a train. So when they're running scenarios, you're doing it as real time as possible. You know, if there's a bank. Remember we did the one. There was a bank situation, bank robbery gone bad, and so, you know, the class went over there, and the person that was supposed to be the negotiator and the other negotiator and all the things that were set up. It was actually a tactical forward position right in front of the bank. Why do they do that over and over? Those of you, if you've been in the military, they try to run the scenarios as close to real life as possible. You know. Before they got shipped to Vietnam, you usually went to Fort Polk, Louisiana. Why did they go to Fort Polk, Louisiana? All right, because it's a swamp. Looks like a jungle, right? Well, just the last couple, they were doing a lot of training at Desert Palm, 29 Palms, out in Arizona, right? Or in the mountains of upstate New York, or I think it was Washington, Fort Lewis. Why? They're going to the mountains, right? And you need to get the reps, right? And without consistent execution, it doesn't settle into who you are, right? So basically, I'm going to be doing I got to fix this, but there'll be a different step-by-step pattern for high-stakes sales, negotiation, coaching conversations based in just a couple of different little models, right? So that's kind of what we're going to do. Put on this thing messed up again. I will be fixing this. So, you know, we're going to give the whole program, and of course, here's the training pitch that everybody does, right? I was watching. I think it was Russell Brunson, who's if you're into that, he's the ClickFunnels guy. And this was just a new one. He just did it in the last couple months. He goes, everybody makes fun of this when you do a stack, but it works. You know? If you're going to just get the modules, this is what it would cost. If you're just going to get the scripts and playbook, this is what it costs. Lab fees, things like total cost, total value would be that, right? This is really messing up. I'm going to have to redo it. I don't know. My computer changed everything. So anyway, that's kind of just an overview of what we're going to do, and have some fun with it. I'm going to redo that. See it when I correct it. But you know, part of that I think the problem was I did it on my computer in Indiana and tried to open it on my computer here. You know, as we say in my recovery world, with some, that's a Cadillac. Boom. So anyway, so that's what I'll be doing. If people have any questions, next week I'm going to do this a little different, and I'll share a couple secrets even deeper. And then next week will become my pitch video. This was, to be honest with you, kind of a run through and give you some insight. See if you could use this information in different ways. And see if you could use this information in different ways. I got to quit leaning back. You know, we'll have to break down and buy that microphone. So it's like when I'm on a movie set. It's always right there. Right? So that's kind of interesting.
So let me stop recording. So you train like a performer to be an elite public speaker. That's coming up soon. Again, if you like this kind of stuff, the thing to avoid is boring people with facts. The things to do is tell a story and excess emotion. That influences people. Wherever you're watching this, make sure you subscribe and please leave a comment and tell everyone around it. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. That's HortonPsychology.com.